If you still have people outside, please, you can enter, as we shall start in a few seconds. Dear Director General, Rwanda Basic Education Boards, and officials from REB, dear Acting Principal, University of Rwanda College of Education, and other officials from URC, the CPT coordinator, and trainers, dear DDs from different districts, and sector education inspectors from sectors of program interventions, our beneficiaries, school leaders and teachers, dear partners, Vvob colleagues, all protocol observed. Ngiriwe, good afternoon, bon après-midi. We are very pleased to host you this afternoon for the dissemination event. As you all know, since 2017, Vvob Education for Development, together with its partners, the Ministry of Education, Rwanda Basic Education Board, and University of Rwanda College of Education, is implementing a multi-year program called Leading Teaching and Learning Together in Kinyarwanda, umusemburo w'ireme ry'uburezi to promote the quality of basic education through enhancing school leadership and induction of new teachers. The 5-year programs runs in both primary and secondary education and focuses on implementation of the competence-based curriculum while supporting the improvement of learning outcomes in mathematics and STEM in gender-responsive environments. 3 years ago, in 2018, we were together to disseminate the midlife evaluation, which showed already good results. Today, as the program is ending, we are going to disseminate our key findings, results, and lessons learned from the end-line evaluation and the impact assessments of the overall LTLT program, which will be the pathway for future programs and action for achieving quality education. Without further ado, I would like to invite Ms. Mayan Kigundu, the Vvob Country Program Manager, for her welcome remarks, and she invites our guest of honor, Deja Reb, for the opening remarks. Thank you. So I forgot to present myself. My name is Umurisa Henrietta. I am the Partnership Manager of Vvob, and I am your MC of today's events. Thank you.
Thank you, Henriette. You've made my job easy. You've made the introductions and welcomed our guests. So I'll go straight to my welcome remarks. Good afternoon, everyone. All protocols observed. Welcome to this dissemination event of the N-line impact studies of the multi-year program that Henriette just outlined, Leading Teaching, Learning Together program. But today, under the theme, Building Change by Leading Teaching and Learning Together, reflecting on N-line evaluations and way forward. On behalf of Vvob, I want to first of all thank you all for honoring our invitation and for taking the time to join us today in person and online for this key milestone event as we come to the end of implementing the Leading Teaching Learning Together program, or as we affectionately call it, LTLT or LT squared. In many meetings that Vvob has been in, we're always asked this pervasive question: what is the impact of all this capacity development and continuous professional development for school leaders? I'm really pleased that today we shall go a long way in answering that question as we digest these key findings of the program evaluation, the achievements, the recommendations therein, to strengthen our interventions in the basic education, of course, in the years ahead. So as we end this program, I would like to highlight some of the systematic achievements that have been critical in the success of this program. Over the program period, evidence-based professional standards for effective school leadership were established, which describe the key roles, responsibilities, and required competences to be an effective school leader. I'm really pleased to say that these standards now serve as a framework for recruitment, assessment, and professional development of school leaders. As a co-chair with Rwanda Basic Education Board, REB, on the School Leadership Task Force, Vvob supports the coordination of school leadership interventions in the basic education sector. I don't mind clapping at this point. So the COVID-19 pandemic was part of the 5-year program, and it really thrust education into the spotlight. In response to the pandemic, and with support of our partners, we distributed digital tools, but importantly complemented by digital literacy to enable the continuous professional development support for education actors in an online environment. The quantitative and qualitative gains will be highlighted through this event. So as we disseminate these N-line evaluation study, my call to you all in this room and online is to engage with these findings, these N-line findings, and the achievements that have been made alongside our partners through this program, and also to own these N-line findings as public goods that can enable the strengthening of school leadership and teacher professional development interventions within the basic education system in Rwanda. My wish is that these findings confirm what is working in CPD support systems and peer learning communities and will strengthen our joint alignment and coordination as partners here in this room and beyond in the basic education sector. Lastly and importantly, I cannot leave without thanking and extending my vote of thanks to the partners, beneficiaries that richly contributed to the achievements of the impact of this program. I wish to acknowledge our strong partnership and collaboration with the Ministry of Education, the Rwanda Basic Education Board, the University of Rwanda College of Education, which has enabled the implementation, the growth of this program and its success. My deep appreciation goes to our funding partners, the MasterCard Foundation, thank you for coming today, Leaders in Teaching Initiative, the Belgian government under the Directorate General for Development Cooperation, the ELMA Foundation, and many others who have trusted Vvob as an implementing partner here in Rwanda. To the education leaders at district sector and at school level, we really thank you for committing to professional development through this program from which we see the knowledge, attitude, and skills that you are now able to implement. To my Vvob colleagues that made today possible, I give you my thanks. I wish you all successful engagement and deliberations, and I now invite the Director General Rwanda Basic Education Board for his opening remarks. Thank you.
URC Principal, Vvob Country Programs Manager, Vvob team from Belgium, DDs, school leaders, teachers, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Thank you for coming together for the dissemination event of Vvob Endline Impact Studies with the theme Building Change by Leading, Teaching, and Learning Together. The Ministry of Education, through Rwanda Basic Education Board, has a mission to improve the quality of education through combined ways, including enhancing school leadership. Teachers and school leaders are important actors in raising the quality in primary and secondary education through improving learning outcomes and learner well-being. They must observe both the school environment and the classroom environment. At Rwanda Basic Education Board, we have recruited a number of teachers and conducting school leaders recruitment and placement in an effort to have the competency-based curriculum fully implemented while improving the learning outcomes in various disciplines such as math and STEM in a gender-responsive manner. Access to data and statistics is critical to generate needs of people, including teachers and school leaders. We believe that research is a key to development of any sector. Education sector is not an exception. Research positions both institutions and stakeholders to identify challenges, mitigations, and areas of further interventions. We shall continue to spirit of collaboration with our partners, Vvob in particular, to conduct more CPD programs from in-person to online modalities. This will create enabling environment for quality teaching and learning in schools through such initiatives. At REB, we are ready for the sustainability of this program when Vvob as the program will be ending. Once again, thank you for coming together, and I wish you an interactive and insightful event. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Marianne and Nelson, for your remarks. So before we are going into the endline and impact evaluation presentations, so we are going to have an overview of Ltit program for you to be able even to understand the evaluations and the impacts. So I'm calling my colleague Solange Mkayiranga, our education manager, to give us that overview.
Thank you very much, Henriette. Good afternoon. It's my pleasure to present to you the Vvob program, the overview of the Vvob program, which is leading, teaching, and learning together. It's a 5-year program, and it is a joint program between Vvob, URCE, and Rwanda Basic Education Board. The purpose of this program was to continue promoting quality of basic education, primary and secondary education, through enhancing school leadership and setting up an induction system of newly teachers. And this collaboration started in January 2017 and will end this year, December 31st. Vvob agreed to provide technical support through building capacity of URCE and REB, the direct beneficiaries of the program. And Vvob and its partner, REB and URCE, agreed that they will collaborate, they will implement together this LT program. Thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah. That they will implement together this LT program through designing, reviewing, redeveloping, implementing, and even M&E and research. This program is being implemented in the 6 districts in the primary, supported by Belgian government, and in secondary by Mastercard Foundation in its program, Leaders in Teaching. Technology. Okay. Yeah, this intervention logic summarizes our program. As you can see, we have 2 components. We have school leadership support and teacher support. And this program, we are partnering with the URCE, University of Rwanda College of Education, which is delivering this program, and also the program is delivered and certified by University of Rwanda College of Education. We have a 3 CPD program, as you can see. The 1 CPD is a diploma course. The CPD diploma course program is in effective school leadership, and our beneficiaries are school leaders, among others, head teachers and deputy head teachers, even DDEs and EEOs who are implementing the program at the centralized level. We also have a CPD certificate program in education mentorship and coaching. The beneficiaries are SEIs, sector education inspectors, or sector education officers, as you can see there, but now they are SEIs, sector education inspectors. Also beneficiaries are school-based mentors. Why SEIs and SBMs? SEIs are trained, they are equipped with skills in coaching and mentoring so that they can initiate PRCs, professional learning communities, at sector level. And SBMs are trained because they initiate, they organize CPDs at school level, and even they organize communities of practice at school level. As you can see, we also have a CPD for STEM teachers in secondary school, where we support our head of departments in sciences and math, and in primary, we support math teachers. We also, as you can see in the middle, we build the capacity of REB, and also REB is there to ensure that what we are doing, to ensure the quality of our work. So they are involved in all activities that we do, in field visit, in redevelopment, development, in monitoring, evaluation, and so on. And as you can see, all our actors, our beneficiaries are trained. Why? To ensure that their trainings, their learning, their skills can have an impact to the learners, to ensure there is change. There is in a primary where you can reduce gender gap, improve learning, and so on. And even in secondary, we have STEM to ensure that our young students, they have 21st century skills. As you can see, we have an approach that helps us in what we do, starting by analysis, needs analysis. When we started this program, LT program, we started by analysis and design, in design phase, where our beneficiaries were involved, development, implementation, and even evaluation. After each cohort, as you can see, we have 3 cohorts. Initial plan was to have 3 cohorts, but when we shifted from face-to-face to online, some trainees, those who didn't have access to ICT, skills to ICT, were shifted in the cohort 4. So to ensure that no one left behind. So after each cohort, we organize, once again, we review, we develop our modules to ensure that feedback from our trainees are integrated in our module. We train our indirect beneficiaries through direct beneficiaries, URCE. So our target was to reach 5,000 key actors, among others 3,000 teachers and 2,000 school leaders, and our reach is at 95%. Where is 5%? 5% is those who dropped out because of various reasons, among others, those who have low skills in ICT, who fear ICT. Mainly, there is a high turnover in education system. So all those are among reasons. And we train, but also we monitor our work to ensure there is effect. We monitor through different approaches, among others, using Kilpatrick model approach. We also use most significant change stories, focus group discussions, and so on, to ensure that we capture the impact without waiting end-line evaluation. In brief, my presentation is focusing on our reach, our impact to the program, the impact in terms of data, also impact in terms of system strengthening. Vvob and other partners, we provide support through CPD, but currently the CPD rules and regulations were developed by URCE and approved with support of Vvob. This is a great achievement. And another achievement in terms of system strengthening, we have 5 profession standards for school leaders. As Marianne was saying, that these standards also helped to, when the REB was developing criteria to recruit school leaders. So there is also another achievement for teachers, for teacher support. Setting an induction system for newly teachers. This is in line with the government policy to ensure that we retain teachers in the system. They need induction. So Vvob provide this support. We build the capacity of key actors, among others, school-based mentors, SSLs, school subject leaders, sector education inspectors, TTC tutors, to ensure that they have skills in coaching and mentoring. Also, we build their capacity to ensure that they have skills or the capacity to conduct and facilitate induction of new teachers during their first induction year in primary school. We build the capacity of TTC tutor. This specifically for TTC tutors to ensure that there is a link between in-service and pre-service and in-service, where TTC tutors monitor and supervise induction of new teachers in primary education, in primary schools during their first induction year. Regarding networking of school leaders and teachers, Vvob, in line with the REB government policy, we also strengthen the professional learning communities. It is a peer learning of school leaders who are supported by trained SEIs, sector education inspectors, who have skills in coaching and mentoring. And also, we strengthen community of practices, which is organized at school level and is organized by trained SPM, school-based mentors, with support of school subject leaders. We also build capacity. We also strengthen systems. We enabling system, because as I was saying, the shift from face-to-face to online, also the system, to enable the system for teachers and school leaders to ensure that they continue their learning. Around more than 3,000 laptops were distributed in all schools countrywide, and the URCE, our facilitators, have been trained in e-tutoring course, and also to ensure that our beneficiaries, trainees, they have capacity, they were trained in digital literacy. We also a digital data ecosystem for planning, monitoring, and evaluation were developed. And this is an important system where we can, all those different levels for Kirkpatrick, different levels, we can collect all those information there, information related to CPDs. So this is a system that can help education system, Ministry of Education, REB, to ensure that maybe they can align this ecosystem with the existing system to ensure that there is teachers, there is school leaders who are taking CPD, but we need also to ensure that we capture, we monitor those CPDs. There is also Digital School Improvement Plan. School Improvement Plan is an important document indication system used by primary and secondary schools. And this is a document is not only for REB and also NESA. Yesterday, we was in the meeting with the NESA. They were saying, please come. We need to work with you through this SIP. So it is REB and NESA document. It is an important one. Also, to ensure that there is a continuation, there is scaling up of this program. Other 16 districts that are not yet supported by MasterCard Foundation, where you can see non-lead district, non-leaders in the teaching district, around 3,700 actors have been trained in digital literacy. 5 actors at school level, 1 head teacher, 1 deputy head teacher, 1 SBM, and 2 SSLs. We build capacity of school leaders, teachers, but we ensure that there is peer learning continues, where we have our magazine, Urunana Rw'Abarezi. The author of this magazine is teachers, head teachers, district officials, SEIs, Vvob, staff, REB. So this peer learning magazine, it is distributed countrywide to all schools to ensure that the program, the good experience is shared countrywide. Thank you very much for your kind attention.
Thank you. Thank you, Solange, for the overview of the Ltit program. So as she have said, the program is being implemented in 17 districts. Let me do this one. So, yeah, the program is being implemented in 17 districts, in primary schools in 6 districts, in secondary in 14 districts, with 3 districts overlapping. So in total, we have 17 districts. So what is the impact on that CPD program implemented together with URC and REB and Minister of Education? So as you have seen on the agenda, you have, everyone has that small overview with the agenda. So you're going to have 2 important sessions. We're going to hear from our researchers on the endline evaluation and impact study to show us on the result of this program. So the endline evaluation is going to be, it has been done by Tristan International. So Mrs. Christina Advelsen, she's here. She will be having 20 minutes to present the endline evaluation. And we have also the impact study conducted by Maastricht University. And we'll be having Kara Helmans. She'll be joining us online. Kara, I hope you are ready online. And Richard Ashford, our colleague from Vvob, Strategic Education Advisor, MNU and Research, we have 5 minutes to give a general comments on the 2 study. So after the presentation, we have a session of question and answers, which will be moderated by our colleague from Vvob headquarters, Jeff and Inge. They will help us to get questions from the audience and from the online, but also they can also ask some questions to our researchers. So let me call Christina to present the endline evaluation. Thank you.
Oh, sorry. Thank you, everyone, for having me here today to present the endline findings from the LT in secondary education, as well as the Girls on Mars. Sorry, thank you. This is the first time I've done an in-person presentation of the findings in quite a while. So thanks again for having me here today. I'll be presenting on both final evaluations, and there's a lot of data to present, and so I really am only presenting some of the highlights. And there's a lot more in the reports themselves. Oh, come on. Is this working? Is it? Oh, maybe not. Oh, great. So first, just to talk through the leading teaching and learning together in secondary education, final endline evaluation. So the purpose of this evaluation was to look at the longer term effects of the program on CPD support systems for educational actors, DDEs, DEOs, SEIs, school leaders, so head teachers and deputy head teachers, SBMs, STEM SSLs, and new teachers, as well as the longer-term effects of the program on the competencies and motivation of these key educational actors, the longer-term effects of the program on overall CPD support systems, and on the school environment, and on the school as a learning organization, as well as to look at any differential effects, non-effects, unintended effects, and the influence of COVID-19. So the approach, it was a mixed methods approach. So this means it included both quantitative and qualitative research, and it was a part of a wider impact evaluation that started with a baseline study in 2019. The baseline study actually took place after the program had already started training, so the first cohort had been trained at the time of the baseline study. But the baseline study did include a survey, both with baseline participants, being those who had not yet participated in the program, as well as some where their school leaders had already participated in cohort 1. And so this survey was accompanied by qualitative research. Then at midline, there was another qualitative research that was undertaken. And then at endline, we repeated the survey that was carried out at baseline. So this will work. Oh, there it was. Oops. Please don't go forward. So for the survey, we conducted the survey with school leaders. So that's 176 school leaders. So a mixture of head teachers and deputy head teachers. 108 SEIs, 133 SBMs, 134 STEM SSLs, and 134 newly qualified teachers. So the design was longitudinal. So these were respondents from the baseline that we again followed up with at endline. Except for the newly qualified teachers, these were new teachers. In total, we surveyed 723 educational actors. And then this was accompanied by, oh no, not that far, interviews. So we conducted interviews. We selected those schools where we had a large number of people who had been trained. And so in all 14, we covered all 14 districts, and we interviewed the DDE or DEO in each of those districts. Within those districts, we interviewed 26 head teachers, 13 deputy head teachers, 12 sector education inspectors, 14 SBMs, 14 STEM SSLs, 14 STEM teachers, 14 newly qualified teachers, as well as conducted focus group discussions with parent, teacher, and student representatives, as well as STEM students. So the findings, I've broken it up into a few categories. So the first, we're going to talk about CPD support systems and the changes that we've seen in the findings. There we go. So first of all, we do see changes in access to CPD. So at baseline, one of the baseline findings really highlighted that there was inequitable access to CPD at schools, finding that the majority of those who had access were school leaders and other leaders within the school. And at Nline, despite COVID-19, we asked in the previous 12 months, and so this survey was conducted in April, so in the previous 12 months, have you participated in CPD on behavior and class management, CPD on teaching practice, CPD on content and knowledge? And overall, we do see an increase in access to CPD for groups that were previously had less access, for example, newly qualified teachers. You can also see that while it wasn't measured at baseline, STEM SSLs are reporting very high access to CPD opportunities. There we go. We also looked at inductions. So one of the biggest changes that we see coming out of schools regarding inductions is that is a general understanding that new teachers should not be expected to teach well from the first day on the job, and that the job does require specialized support within the first years of becoming a teacher. The key educational actors really do believe that inductions do develop better teachers. Overall, we see that the formal inductions at schools increased. At baseline, 60% of those school leaders surveyed reported that they had a formal induction at their school, whereas Nline, we see it's now at 95%, so it's a 58% increase between the baseline and the Nline in the offering of induction programs. And I think it's also important to mention here is that at baseline, schools may have thought that they had induction programs, but some of the findings show that the induction programs are now more holistic as a result of their participation in the training. We also do see greater participation of school leaders, SBMs, and STEM SSLs in offering induction programs. We see an 18% increase in SBMs reporting participation in inductions and a 52% increase in STEM SSLs. We also looked at communities of practice. Findings from the schools, from the qualitative research, really highlight that communities of practice are developing the teaching community within the school and really do provide opportunities for teachers to share best practices and solve problems encountered in the classroom. And they see that COPs ultimately help teachers teach better. The quantitative findings show that access to COPs has increased, particularly for newly qualified teachers. It's more than doubled over baseline. So at baseline, 37% of newly qualified teachers surveyed reported participation in COPs, and at Nline, it's now 75% report participation in COPs. We do see impact of COVID. A lot of schools, they do continue to have them, but it's been a little bit more challenging to meet in person. So the fact that we still see 75% of newly qualified teachers reporting participation is quite high. And we also see that respondents who report the greater frequency of COPs are more likely to report that COPs are on the formal school timetable. We also looked at professional learning communities. So these are for head teachers and facilitated by the SEI. Head teachers, the qualitative findings show that these are a really important opportunity for head teachers to come together and support each other. And it's been really relevant in the COVID-19 context, where head teachers report that this has allowed them the opportunity to come together and really plan for how their school was going to respond to the restrictions imposed to prevent the spread of COVID-19 and help students return to the classroom, as they found many students had adopted behaviors that were not conducive to returning to the classroom. PLCs provided the opportunity for them to work together to decide how they were going to respond to this and to effectively help students return. They're also seen to help achieve sector education priorities. SEIs note that this is an opportunity for them to share important information with head teachers. so that they can incorporate it into their school plans. There we go. So I'm going to talk now about the competencies and motivation for key educational actors. So this is primarily coming out of our survey data. First, to focus on school leaders. If I can get this. Sorry, this thing's being temperamental. There we go. So school leader competencies. We did a survey where we looked at 3 different scales. First, the efficacy for leadership. Second, efficacy for management, and then confidence. So overall, we do see an increase in those who are reporting high efficacy and high confidence at endline compared to baseline. When looking at leadership, we really do see an increase in those that school leaders who can promote the prevailing values of the community, increase in ability to motivate teachers, and to create a positive environment and to raise student achievement. We also see in efficacy for management, we see an increase in ability to handle the paperwork required of the job and maintain control of their daily schedule. We don't see so much change in being able to cope with the stress of the job, however. And in terms of confidence, we see that there is increase in confidence across all of the questions that were asked, particularly on influencing decisions about the school made at a higher administrative level, and as well as engaging parents and the community. And ultimately, really one of the greatest changes that we can see in the qualitative findings is that there's this shift. So that we see a shift from performing the job. So for example, developing a school improvement plan. Whereas before, pretty much, they developed the school improvement plan to meet a requirement of their SEI or of the district. Whereas now, they understand how to develop a school improvement plan and why the school improvement plan is important for the management of the school, and they actually use it to manage the school. And they report better ability to manage finances as a result, as well as to manage the overall school. And so along those lines, we did explore the leadership's ability to manage in line with the 5 standards for school leadership. And both quantitative and qualitative findings really do show positive changes in the ability to manage in line with all 5 standards as a result of head teacher and deputy head teacher participation in the diploma program. The overall, we combined all the scores, it increased from 81% reporting high competency at baseline to 99% at endline. Okay, SEI competencies. So we measured their confidence to coach and mentor head teachers, and overall we see quite a big change in those reporting high confidence to coach and mentor, particularly tailoring support for different head teachers in schools and leading meetings and delegating leadership, which is primarily associated with PLCs. We also see that because SEIs are not falling under the Ministry of Education, they're falling under Ministry of Local Government, that their participation and this increased engagement with head teachers and understanding of school improvement plans are really helping them to prioritize their role as SEIs, because they can show their supervisors that there are plans and the changes that are happening as a result of these plans. Okay. And SBMs and STEM SSLs, as you can see, we've seen, while attitude has changed slightly for both SBMs and STEM SSLs, when looking at confidence, we see quite a big increase between baseline and endline in confidence to coach and mentor. As well as in efficacy, we see quite a large change in reported efficacy to coach and mentor. Particularly with efficacy, we see an increase in the ability to support teachers in dealing with the challenges that they face in the school. However, there is a challenge for SBMs, particularly, that really comes out in the qualitative findings, is this lack of time to focus on SBM duties. Only 3% of those SBMs surveyed actually said they had a reduced teaching schedule in order to accommodate their role as leading CPD within their schools. So now quickly to look at changes in the school environment. Looking at school, oops, sorry. Sometimes it doesn't go and then sometimes it really goes. Okay, so leadership. So findings from the N-line evaluation really highlight that there are significant changes in leadership within schools. School leaders report changes in how they engage with staff, so away from this top-down approach towards distributive leadership approach, and engaging relevant stakeholders in decision-making processes. And interviews with other staff highlight this as well, that they are more involved. Teachers, parents, community members, everyone feels more involved in decision-making at the school, many attribute it to their school leader participating in this training. In addition, school leaders better appreciate the roles that others can play in the management of the school and are more likely to delegate authority than they did previously. And as a result, school leaders are recognizing that their job can be made easier and that it is easier by delegating. Stakeholders also note that these changes in management style have led to better communication and more understanding of the objectives and decisions that are made by leadership. And as a result, they're more likely to support the school. Particularly teachers and parents are more likely to support when they understand and are involved in that decision-making process. And ultimately, these changes have created a better work environment. Both quantitative and qualitative findings really highlight that there are changes in the overall school environment, and that teachers feel that leadership is more approachable and that their ideas are respected and that they are contributing to the success of their schools because of this. There we go. We also see that there is an effect by having multiple trained actors within the school. At midline, we saw that it was important to have a trained head teacher because they were the ones who helped to ensure that all of the others who had been trained were able to fulfill use the skills that they had learned. And quantitative findings also illustrate the benefit of having multiple trained actors within the school, particularly on confidence and efficacy, as well as on the overall school environment. While not statistically significant, we see that SBNs and SSLs were more likely to increase their rating of the school environment between baseline and endline if more school actors had been trained. We also see that having a trained deputy head teacher is significantly associated with an improved school environment score. And then we also see, as I mentioned, that both the endline and midline findings really do highlight that the successful transfer of learning and the ability to implement at the school level is really dependent upon having a trained school leader, a trained head teacher. But having high transfer and turnover rates among school leaders, some of these gains are short-lived. We do see in qualitative interviews that those who had a trained head teacher who has since left, they do feel that difference. They do notice that there's a change in management style as a result of having a new untrained head teacher enter the school. Then we also looked at changes in the school environment for new teachers, looking at their satisfaction and motivation. And again, the new teachers we surveyed at baseline are different from those that we surveyed at endline because we wanted to be sure we had newly qualified teachers in the sample. And overall, across all three tasks that were measured, so motivation for lesson preparation, motivation for administrative tasks, and motivation for teaching and instructing, we see an increase overall in intrinsic motivation across all three scales. And just to quickly, so the LT program had 6 indicators, and across all 6, I'm not going to just go into this in detail, but across all 6 we do see improvement between baseline and endline. So the high teachers reporting high intrinsic motivation, the percent of head teachers and deputy head teachers reporting high competence in applying the 5 standards of school leadership, percent of SEIs reporting high confidence to coach and mentor head teachers, percent of schools with formal induction programs for new teachers, percent of SBMs that demonstrate improved competencies to coach and mentor, and the percent of heads of departments or SSLs who report high ability to coach and mentor. Across all of those categories, we see quite a big increase between baseline and endline. And again, these were the same people that were surveyed at baseline and again at endline. So to quickly talk about some of the findings from the Girls on Mars final evaluation. So Girls on Mars is in primary schools. So the purpose of this evaluation was to assess the achievements of the program, the efficiency, effectiveness, relevance, sustainability, impact, to look at key areas of success and identify critical areas for improvement and generate some conclusions and recommendations based on that. The approach was qualitative. Come on, please go forward. There we go. It was purely qualitative. It included a review of existing documentation as well as interviews with direct and indirect beneficiaries. Again, data collection took place between April and October. And we covered the 6 districts of the program. We selected 2 sectors per district and 2 schools per sector. And again, 3 of these would have been 3 of the districts overlapped with the LT program as well. We did phone-based interviews with DDEs, DEOs, head teachers, SEIs, SBMs, STEM SSLs, TTC tutors, newly qualified teachers, STEM school subject leaders, and math newly qualified teachers, as well as focus group discussions with math teachers, and some observations. Findings will present school leadership support, the CPD of head teachers and PLCs, and changes in support systems for newly qualified teachers. Again, there's a lot more findings, but I'm trying to just limit it to some of the key findings that have come out. So when we talk about school leadership support, I missed my page here. All right, 1 second. So ultimately, we see that participation in the diploma program on effective school leadership for primary school head teachers has really helped them to develop a better understanding of their role as a school leader. And they also, similar to what we see in the secondary education program, there's a shift towards distributive leadership with a greater sharing of decision-making and delegation of responsibilities. We also see that head teachers are now engaging in CPD activities at their schools and supporting the SBMs at their school. And as a result, school actors report that there's better collaboration and engagement with school leadership, and head teachers report that there's more confidence and that their work is now easier. So very similar findings to what we saw in the secondary education study. Okay, so when we look at CPD of head teachers and PLCs, we find that, again, PLCs are very relevant for head teachers. They provide school leaders and SEIs with an important platform for head teachers to meet and discuss matters related to school leadership and work together to resolve the challenges. It provides the opportunity to share ideas, experiences, and advice. And officials, again, really value PLCs as an opportunity to share messages with the schools, particularly with sharing education goals for inclusion within school improvement plans, and that ultimately PLCs lead to better coordination. Again, at the district level, this didn't come out in the LT inline, but it did come out here, is this PLCs reduce reliance on district level officials to resolve problems and ultimately help school leaders resolve their problems quicker than they would otherwise. Again, similar to what we found before, the PLCs were very relevant to ensure that schools were able to comply with COVID-19 prevention measures, and really did help schools coordinate back-to-school campaigns when it was time for the students to return to in-class learning. And due to their relevance, school leaders and officials report that they will continue to, or they would like to continue to engage in PLCs beyond support from development partners, because they do recognize that they are very useful. But there are multiple models for PLCs, and this also came out in the Girls on Mars evaluation about that there are there are multiple models that they engage with PLCs. Support systems for newly qualified teachers. So when we're looking at the training of the SBMs and math SSLs to support newly qualified teachers, we see that SBMs and math SSLs are now taking a leading role in facilitating CPD, including coaching and mentoring teachers, and that they really do credit the course with giving them the confidence that they needed to fulfill this role. And as a result of this increased capacity and understanding, they note increased satisfaction in their job. But despite, this was an interesting finding, that despite this increased capacity of SBMs and math SSLs to support induction programs, the qualitative findings show that often the assigned mentor is not always the SBM or the math SSL, but could be any teacher at the school. And again, another finding was that the newly qualified teachers complained that their mentors did not have the skills that they felt were useful for them because they were coming out of the TTC, and they often felt that their skills were better than those of the other teachers at their school, whereas the mentors conversely also said that the newly qualified teachers were not open, and that despite the fact that, yes, they might have skills from the TTC, there's more for them to learn about the culture of this school that they can gain through induction programs. Okay, and then we do see that as a result, schools did not have induction programs prior to head teacher participation in the diploma and certificate programs, and that they were either developed or strengthened as a result of their participation in the diploma and certificate programs. And they're deemed to be incredibly relevant for supporting new teachers, and they create well-prepared, more confident teachers with better teaching skills. They also are seen to build relationships between teachers and school staff, and it allows teachers to feel more comfortable and to ask for help when they need it. And that the teaching skills that teachers develop help to motivate them as teachers, and that ultimately they're seen to improve the quality of teaching. And there's findings that these induction programs are now embedded in the school culture. Although, as we see, movement of staff, particularly trained staff, and hiring of untrained teachers may threaten the continuation of induction programs if those who come into the school do not recognize the value of induction programs. I don't know how I'm doing on time, but if 2-3 minutes? Okay, thanks. So quickly, just to talk about some conclusions, and I've tried to pull these conclusions together so that they are coming out of both evaluations. So some general conclusions we see is that there is significant evidence that the participation in the diploma program on effective school leadership and their certificate program in educational mentorship and coaching has increased access to CPD at the school level, particularly for those who did not have access previously. And this includes induction, through induction programs, through COPs, and that there's more support for newly qualified teachers. We also see across both that there's changes in leadership style from authoritative towards distributive leadership. There's greater sharing of information across all education stakeholders. There's more delegation of responsibilities. And we overall, in both, we see that quantitative and qualitative findings indicate that there's a better school environment as a result. And then we see increase in professional participation in professional networks or peer learning opportunities. So PLCs help leaders address problems and challenges at the school, and they create a peer network of support. And we see teachers, school leaders are even going to their fellow head teachers outside of the PLC to seek support now. Participation in COPs, as we noted, are seen to help teachers teach better. And that overall, it does lead to better coordination and information sharing at both the sector and district levels. And we also see changes in the competencies of the educational actors that were trained. Both quantitative and qualitative findings illustrate that there are changes in the ability to perform key job functions. School leaders are more confident in their ability to lead their school within the 5 standards of school leadership. School mentors understand how to coach and mentor and lead CPD at their schools. And as I mentioned, we see this change in performing to fulfill a function or to fulfill a requirement or an expectation to this purposeful action where there is an understanding of why an action is necessary and that they actually have the skills to perform it. However, as we noted, there are challenges at the school, particularly for the SBM. Due to their full teaching load, it is difficult for them to often find the time to lead CPD, and challenges from COVID and returns to school and the shortened trimesters have meant that they've had more teaching responsibilities and less time to engage with teachers. So some general recommendations coming out would be to continue to offer the diploma and certificate courses. I think the findings do illustrate that there are quite a lot of significant changes as a result of head teacher or school leader and mentor participation in these courses. Adoption of CPD practices into the education sector strategic plans so that ultimately they enter the budgets as well. So, for example, PLCs, there's a strong will to continue PLCs. However, there is a budget requirement for that for teachers to come together, and that by incorporating it into the plans and budgets, they will be able to continue the PLCs. And to promote the reduction of teaching hours for SBMs as well, so that they can focus on their role as a leader of CPD within their schools. In addition, I think there could be additional research conducted, particularly looking at various models being implemented here in Rwanda currently, and to identify the best practices from the various models, particularly PLC models would be one example where there are multiple models in use, and so to identify the best practices so that there is more alignment between the various implementing partners in the country. So thank you.
Thank you, Christina, for the end-line evaluation. So let's hear immediately from Kara for the impact study. Kara, if you are hearing us, so I think you will be presenting online. Our tech staff, if you can put Kara online and she can present the impact study. Yes, Kara, you have the floor.
Yes, thank you. Can you just can I double check that you can hear me?
Yes, we can hear you very well.
Perfect. Then I am going to share my screen and tell you all about the impact study that we did. There we go. Okay. Well, first of all, thank you for having me here today. I'm sorry that it has to be online. The COVID situation did not allow to travel to Rwanda. I would have loved to be there and present this to you in person, but I'm glad that we have technology and that I can do it in this way. My name is Carla Halemans. I'm a professor in economics at Maastricht University, and me and my team work together with the Vvob Rwanda office to analyze the impact of continuous professional development for school leaders, where we look at the effect on student performance. So what we have heard in the previous presentation was the research really focused on how participants experienced being in the program, how the teachers, the SBMs, etc., experienced this. And in this impact study, we're actually taking it one step further and looking at what is the ultimate end goal for students of all these professional development programs, namely that the students in the end, we hope that they perform better because of the better support system, the better trained school leaders, teachers, SBMs, etc. at the schools. So that's this study is a first step in evaluating that, and I'll explain in a little bit why I say it's a first step. There we go. So the research question that we wanted to answer with this impact study is what the impact is of the CPD diploma program in effective school leadership on students' academic performance in schools. And we are talking at both students in primary education, so at the P6 level, and students in secondary education at S3. To give you a little bit of background on what I'm telling here is we evaluated 2 of the trained cohorts. There was the C0 cohort, the very first cohort that was trained. And then the first real cohort, the C1 cohort that was trained in 2018-19. And since then, it has already been mentioned before, there were several more cohorts. I think by now we are at cohort 4. But in this impact study, we can only look at the C0 and the C1 cohort. And to evaluate the impact on student performance, we of course need information on student outcomes. And what I'm presenting here today is student grades in English, Kinyarwanda, mathematics, and also the passing rate, both at P6 and at S3 level, which is aggregated at the school level. So for the schools where school leaders participated in the certificate program, we know the average grade of students on these subjects. We also know the average grades of students on these subjects for schools where there was no school leader that participated. About the school, we have quite some background on the school, the size, the student body, the type of school, category of school, what district it was located. So we could also look at what we call differential effects, if the effects are different by different characteristics of the school, or by different characteristics of the school leader. School leaders were trained, but that was both head teachers and deputy head teachers. So does it matter if you train the deputy or the head teacher? Does it matter if the trained school leader is male or female in the effect that we see on student performance? We furthermore included some additional control information, how many years of experience the school leader had, and also importantly, and this was also mentioned before, there is a lot of school leader rotation. So a school leader can be trained and in a certain school, but when looking at student performance a few years later, the school leader may have left that school already. So the question is how much effect you can expect in that school if the school leader has left already. And what we also really wanted to take into account is that Vvob is training school leaders in different cohorts. There may be other organizations training school leaders. So if the school leader, schools that didn't have a school leader trained in the year of the C0 or the C1 cohort trainings may have had a school leader trained the year after. So we take into account that we really make a fair comparison between schools where the school leader was trained and looking at student results the year after, and schools where there was no school leader trained in that period. So we took that into account as well. Well, what did we do? We compared the student performance in the year in which the school leader was treated, so was trained in the certificate program, with the student performance the year thereafter. And we did that for both C0 and C1. So for C0, we compared 2015 with 2016, and for the C1 cohort, we compared 2018 with 2019. The data we used was only available up until 2019, so there was no way of either looking at student performance more than 1 year after participating in the training, and there was also, at this point, no way of comparing, looking at later cohorts, so the C2 cohort, for example. That's why we looked at treatment, training, participation in 1 year, and the student performance in the year after. And because of the large differences between schools, between school leaders, we also control for a lot of school characteristics: school size, how many female students, so what's the student body like, the category, the type, and also the experience of the school leader. Well, I can go a lot more into detail about what we did methodologically, but we have an underlying report where that's all documented. There's also the short summary of this study that you may have received. So I'll jump right to the results because I think that's the most interesting, and also because we have a limited time. Well, the first thing we did is simply comparing the treated schools with a school leader that was trained in either one of the cohorts, and compare that with schools that were not trained in that period. And if we then look at the student performance, the difference in student performance the year of the training and the year after, we see that for English, both in P6 and in S3, the students of the schools where the school leader was trained, they performed significantly higher. However, for Kinyarwanda, for maths, or for passing rates, we don't see any difference. And if I say we don't see any difference, the difference is near zero, but also not significant at all. Whereas for English, we really see quite a positive, significant effect. Now, the question already comes up, why English, why not the other subjects? I'll get to that at the end of the presentation. But the question is also, is there a specific group of schools or type of school leaders that's driving these results? So we looked at, can we find differential effects in these results? Well, first of all, we looked at who was trained. Was it the deputy head teacher or the head teacher? And what's interesting is when we look at that difference, we don't only find an effect for English, but also for Kinyarwanda. So those effects in P6 and in S3 that I just described, we find them because of the deputy head teacher. So if we only look at the deputy head teachers, we find this positive result. But if we only look at the head teachers, we do not see an effect on English. However, if we look at Kinyarwanda, we see that if we separate the analysis by deputy head teachers and head teachers, that all of a sudden we do see a positive effect of being trained in the certificate program for students at the S3 level if the head teacher of the school is being trained. For mathematics and for the passing rate, we still don't see anything at all. Then the next question, sub-question was, does it matter if the deputy head teacher or the head teacher that's being trained is male or female? And before I say something about the results, I should also mention that the large majority of trained school leaders was male. So the female group is rather small. Having said that, we do see, again, if we look at those separate groups, that the effects we saw before are driven by the male school leaders being trained and not the female school leaders. And again, we don't see any effects for the other subjects, only for English. So finding something for English is really the red thread through the results. What if we look not at individual characteristics of the school leaders, but at characteristics of the school? What if we look at the difference between effects for government-aided schools, for public schools, and for private schools? Well, again, the English positive effect that we find is mostly coming from private schools versus the others, both of the others. However, it's really important to mention, if we look at the data, student performance aggregated at the school level, that private schools really have a much lower student performance than government-aided schools and public schools. So knowing that private schools have much lower performance, if their school leaders participate in a certificate program, they reduce the gap a little bit with the other schools. They are still the lowest in performance, but the gap is a little bit smaller than it was if they would not have participated in the certificate program. So we have to put these effects by school category a little bit in perspective. We see that the effect is larger for private schools, but they also had quite a gap to catch up on. And this is contributing to that, but that doesn't mean that the private schools are all of a sudden performing much better than the other schools. They are still, below the other two types. And again, we don't see any effects for Kinyarwanda mathematics or passing rate. Then the last type of analysis we did was looking at, do we see differences by school type for primary or secondary or schools that have both? And there we don't see any differences. So the certificate program contributes to the English performance of students, both in primary and in secondary education. It doesn't matter whether it's a primary only or secondary only school or a school where they are both offered. Well, then I said in the beginning, we look at both the C0 and the C1 cohorts, and we put them together because there is not that many school leaders in these cohorts that are being trained. So by combining the two in the analysis, we have a better quality of our quantitative analysis. But the question, of course, is, well, is maybe the effect that we see mostly on English, is that driven by either one of the two cohorts? Can we attribute the results to just one of the cohorts or maybe to both? And if we do that, if we look at those separate analyses, we see that the results that we found are completely driven by the C0 cohort. So the very first cohort that was trained, that was also a smaller cohort. And the question then also is whether that might be the case because that specific cohort was actually, the participating school leaders were selected partly based also on the English proficiency. So maybe this English level of school leaders has a positive effect also on the English performance of students in that school. Another reason may also be that because the C1 cohort was completely random selected, that it might take longer for effects to show instead of immediately the year thereafter, because they were completely random and comparable to other school leaders. So it may, the differences are probably smaller when they start, and it may simply take a few more years for effects to show. And another reason may be that looking at this C1 cohort, it could be that the group of school leaders that we have only in the C1 cohort and the comparison group simply wasn't big enough to show, well, a probably smaller effect than we find for the C0 cohort. So let me conclude on this impact study. We do see a positive and significant effect of school leadership training program on English grades of students, both in P6 and in S3. We find that these effects are mostly driven by deputy head teachers and male school leaders. For head teachers, we see that if head teachers are trained, the Kinyarwanda grades in secondary education of students are actually higher. I already explained private schools benefit even more from this training program, certificate program, but they still perform lower than public and government aided schools. So about a discussion, what does this mean? I mean, I already hinted at it. The results are mainly driven by the C0 cohort. Question is if there is some selection of the school leaders that participated, for example, by their English proficiency level. It could also be that the effects take more time to show. So I think it's really important to have these analyses repeated, well, every year or once every 2 or 3 years to keep following the schools and the students at the schools of those trained school leaders over time to see what's going on. On the one hand, if school leaders are being trained, they really get a boost, and we've also seen that in the previous presentation. They get a boost and they try to do something different. So it could be that this enthusiasm really brings about a change at their school right away. On the other hand, if we train school leaders, we expect them to kind of transfer some of that knowledge and professionalism to the teachers at the school, who then are expected to transfer that to the classroom, to the students who should transfer it to their test scores. So there's a lot of transferring from training school leaders to students' performance. So it may also very well be that it simply takes more time than just 1 year for those effects to show. So that's another important reason why I think we should want to follow up on this and keep following these results. I think we can say that the intervention is partly effective, is that we don't see results all over the subjects that students write tests in. And the question on why we may find effects only for deputy head teachers for English, only for male head teachers or deputy head teachers. What this study, it can really show these quantitative results, But it doesn't, I mean, we don't know what actually happened in the school, what happened in the interactions between school leaders and teachers, what happened in the classroom of those teachers in how it may have influenced students. So I think qualitative research, similar to what we saw in the previous presentation, but qualitative research really on gaining insights on what's happening in the school, in the class, would be, well, highly suggested to study more of the mechanisms of what is going on in these, yeah, the effects that we see, and also the ones that we don't see, because also knowing more about the mechanisms may give us insights in why we may not find an effect on, for example, Kinyarwanda. And that was a short presentation on the impact study. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Kara, for your good presentation. Yeah, a lot of findings, a lot of figures. Please keep them in mind, as maybe we are going to link them with what we're going to have after a panel discussion, where we're going to hear from our beneficiaries. But before that, and before we go to the session of question and answers, we have Richard Ashford, our education, strategic education advisor for research. So he has worked with the researchers. So can you tell us what you think? Give us your general comments on the two studies as our discussant. Thank you. You can come here or you can use the microphone.
Perfect. Thank you. So I'm going to be very brief. I'd like to try to keep this brief so we can open it up for questions. Generally, you've heard a lot of detail already, and some of this might be confusing if you are not in research or M&E and so forth. So I wanted to just say a few things generally about research as you will. So certainly, as you've seen, there were 3 different studies. They have very different approaches. Generally, what we find is that you have different research questions will drive different types of research. And in fact, that's what you've seen. We actually had different questions that we wanted to answer. And I'm looking for my presentation. I just have four main comments. Let me bring my computer up. So one of the things that you heard at the very end was that Carla was talking about how qualitative research may actually help supplement the quantitative research that she did around impact study, and that's very important. So these are complementary types of research. Generally, what I do in my job is that I try to take holistically everything that we're doing and find ways that we can analyze it. And so I've done this through, what's happened is that when we're looking at the research, we've come up with various themes. And some of these themes you may have heard about: distributed leadership, blended learning, tools for school leaders, coordination, effects of leadership training, use of data to inform practice, etc. And in doing the research generally, particularly at the end of programs, what we want to know is what went well, what can be improved, and how can our findings inform practice? And you've heard some recommendations on how that might occur. Generally, these research projects are what we call lessons learned. We want to learn something about the research in order to better understand how we might improve our research. Oh, it is coming. So yeah, I'm already on my third one here. So what we've essentially learned, we've learned a lot from these research projects, but we've also learned from generally our programming. We've learned through various types of feedback, regular program monitoring, feedback from field visits, implementation, feedback, etc. All of these have helped us inform what we do in our programming. And you can see even under the LT, we actually were able to very quickly transition to online programming during COVID, and actually transition just as quickly back to blended learning here in these last few months. So that's something that we do not only within the program, but after the program, as in that what we have learned from our LT program, we have actually are using to build our next program. And you've been hearing some suggestions about what that's going to look like. We're really going to be basing our lessons learned, two main components, blended learning, two main components that are different, I should say. Really a very blended learning approach with a focus on data for school leadership. We're going to continue to work with our partners to develop ownership and capacity, and we're going to be looking at the tools that we've already been developing and piloting and tweaking them, if you will, or reviewing them and looking for ways to improve these. So I would welcome comments and questions from the audience, whether online or in person, that we could have a very brief discussion, I think, about these, about some of the research now, because I know that we will be going into as well another session that will include individuals who have actually been implementing our programs. And maybe it's better if we save some of the questions that we may have and just ask some of the burning questions. And I might ask perhaps one of our moderators to field some of these questions. Thank you. So it was quick.
Thank you, Richard. So for the session question and answers, they're going to be moderated by Jeff and Inger. So you have the floor, and yeah, you get insight from the audience and from the online questions.
Good afternoon. So we have had some interesting presentations from 2 evaluation studies plus an impact study. We have an audience that follows online through a link that we have shared on Teams. My colleague Fred, he will forward me questions from online participants through WhatsApp, and my colleague Inge, she will take questions from the audience, so she will go around. So anyone who can, maybe we can start with 3 questions or so, and then you can address them to one of the presenters, whether it's Carla, who is following her online, or Christina, who is here in the audience, or Richard. So feel free to ask a question.
Thank you very much. Let me first of all congratulate Vvob and the partners for this very great achievement. And I have a few questions. I don't know whether they are questions or clarifications. The first one is to get more clarification. I know this was a qualitative research, but I wanted to know I also understand the, first, my name is Antonia Mtoru from Forum for African Women Educationists. We are into girls' education access and women empowerment. So I'm very much interested on the impact of girls and women in this. So I would like to know, I know there's a change in attitudes and confidence on STEM, but I wanted to know whether actually numbers were captured, like the baseline, how many girls were in STEM, and end line, how many girls were motivated to join STEM. That would be a good one to know. The other one, I think I missed this, could have been talked about because I saw it as part of the content, sustainability of this I wanted to know the recommendations on sustainability or how going forward. The other question is about mentorship, which is also close to my heart, especially mentorship for young women and girls into STEM. I don't know what the definition of mentorship in this research was, or even in the baseline or end line, so that we get to know why there was this mismatch that we see, because we see complaints on both sides, although we also see some positivity somewhere. So what was this? Because mentorship should be a relationship. So what was the definition of this? And lastly, it's a recommendation maybe for partners, maybe the Minister of Education, Vvob, and all that. I would have loved to see in these certificates, diplomas, if a module on GRP, on gender-responsive pedagogy, was included. For those who don't know, gender-responsive pedagogy is an approach to teaching and learning that puts into considerations of the needs of both girls and boys for better performance. So if it was in this, I think we could have seen more impact, positive. I want to thank you very much. It was really eye-opening for me. Right. Thank you very much again. Thank you.
Okay.
Great. Patrick Musafiri from Save the Children. I've got two questions, one for Solange, another one for Christina. First for Solange, we know CPD time has always been an issue for teachers and mentors due to a heavy workload. So how did you play around that to ensure both teachers and mentors have time to interact through CPD? The second question for Christina, how did you measure intrinsic and extrinsic motivation of teachers? Thank you.
Okay, I don't know if maybe we can listen to one more person for some additional questions, and then we can go back to the panel. Some of the questions have been addressed to the presenters of the research, and some of them are addressed to Vvob colleagues. So for those who have been asked questions, please prepare for an answer.
Thank you. This is Firme Sangomoremi, working for UNICEF. I'm in charge of pre-primary education. I have two questions. Thank you very much for this wonderful program that it started in 2017 and is ending this year. So we have seen that you have had some partnership with URC, especially for supporting teachers in terms of leadership. I'm wondering if this program will actually continue when this project phases out. It's actually in terms of sustainability, if this program with URC will continue after the program closes. That's number one. Number two, we've seen that you are actually supporting teachers and head teachers in primary and secondary. And you know that when you're actually supporting the education sector, it is always a good idea to start from the foundation. I have not seen any support provided to the teachers that have pre-primary schools, because you know that pre-primary schools also prepare students to study well from P1. Just want to know if there was any concern of also supporting those teachers also to mentor and support pre-primary teachers. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you, Christina. Maybe you can try to answer some of the questions that were addressed to you first.
Sure. Okay, so first, just to answer the question about the focus on STEM in our research. So we didn't look, STEM students were not surveyed, so we do not have a baseline for STEM students on their participation. However, we did interview STEM teachers, and we did interview students and did ask about their engagement in STEM and math, as well as perceptions of teachers about learning for both girls and boys in school. And so just generally some of the findings there were that there does seem to be an understanding that girls and boys can perform equally in STEM, and that there is definitely more engagement. I can't remember, sorry, because I did both Girls on Mars and the LT. Sometimes they get them confused in my head as to which findings they're coming from. But you do see that there is more trying to engage girls more in the subjects. However, again, it wasn't quantitative, this was just from our qualitative findings. See. I think maybe another question were recommendations about sustainability of the program. And sustainability is quite large, a big topic, because there are many aspects of the program that where you could discuss the sustainability. So I think some of the components that do appear to be incredibly sustainable are those that can be implemented at the school or school level. So these PLCs and COPs, there's a lot of indication that these are embedded practices, as well as induction programs for newly qualified teachers. So there's a lot of indication that these are quite sustainable and will continue beyond support of Vvob. I don't know if that particularly answers your question, unfortunately. And then I think the other question that was directly asked to me, which was about how we measured motivation of newly qualified teachers. And this, we used the work role motivation scale. So it was a series of questions about how motivated teachers are to conduct the various tasks that are specific to the teaching profession. And for all tasks, there are a set of 10 questions related to intrinsic, extrinsic, and amotivation. So there was 3 subscales, as I presented before, which was about the motivation to, motivation for administrative tasks, for lesson preparation, and for teaching and instructing. And so for each of those, there were a set of 10 questions. Within that, 2 were measuring intrinsic motivation, 6 were looking at extrinsic motivation, and 2 were looking at amotivation. It is in our in the report, and as well as the scales are presented in the report as well. So if I can share more details on that.
Much, Christina. And then I will invite from the part of Vvob, maybe Solange, to also give some additional comments on questions which have not been replied to by Christina.
Thank you, Inga. The question is from Save the Children. It's about how we ensure that, in other words, if COP took place, yeah, is it that? And CPD time. CPD time, what we do, we train school-based mentors, we train head teachers, we train deputy head teachers, and to ensure that CPD, the COP is part of CPD. And to ensure that the COP, communities of practice, took place, we organize supportive field visit. We also we have a portfolio of evidence. So that when they organize a COP, also when we go to the field, we ensure that they show us this portfolio. We see the reporting, they show us pictures that ensure that the COP took place. About the PLCs, PLC is also a CPD. It is organized by trained SEIs at sector level. So our team, Vvob team, they staff together with the URCE, they go to the field. Also they support, they ensure that these PLC take place. So it is managed either through these, to monitor the portfolio, and also through this field visit that we do together with the URCE. Thank you. With REB, this time there is a time for CPD. But before this communicate from REB, to ensure that COP which is part of CPD and also PLCs. Our approach was to monitor the portfolio and also to go to the field to ensure that PLC take place through different sessions, because we organize 4 sessions for PLCs. All sessions is organized by Vvob team and together with URCE and REB team. And for COP, we do it through supportive field visit. We ensure that it takes place. Also through this portfolio of evidence that they share with us, the evidence that they show that the COP took place. But now it is, there is hours for CPD. It is also achievement. Yeah, thank you.
And maybe Marianne, can I invite you to say something about the pre-primary education and the question on gender in the courses?
Thank you, Inge. So specifically on the LT program, Leading Teaching Learning Together, there was no component for pre-primary specifically. We intervened on the primary and secondary education. However, we have a new program under Learning Through Play, which is called It's Play, where we will specifically have interventions in the pre-primary sector, but also going through this emergent numeracy for our support. So I do recognize that, but for LT, there was no specific on pre-primary, but I take the point. In terms of the redevelopment of our content over the 5 years of the program, we also had a gender component where we actually looked at the gender element, and we had a gender mainstreaming toolkit that we put in place. We have our gender and equity advisor here, and she can confirm that we actually looked at the content and mainstreamed it with a gender perspective, indeed. So perhaps, Juanita, you can add to that.
Thank you, Juanita. So we developed a mainstreaming guide, which was basically to look at what can we do to ensure that we are mainstreaming gender. But on top of that, we actually had a gender unit and section in every CPD modules that we were carrying out. Same goes for the training. Same as for the CPD support. So in short, the guide was supposed to look at how are we ensuring that both men and women are included. Then those indifferences we would cater to in case we found that these needs had to be addressed. In brief, thank you.
Thank you. Can I add something related to gender, because I saw that it was emphasizing on gender pedagogy, which is really an important element. My name is Alphonse from College of Education. I was coordinating these activities. So according to HEC, we follow the Rwanda National Framework qualification for these CPD programs. To have a certificate, you need to cover 20 credits, the minimum. One of the modules was specifically focusing on mentoring, coaching in education, where participants, mainly school subject leaders, were trained and facilitated to mentor and coach their fellows with focus on new teachers. So what we mean here, mentorship and coaching is just a process of inducting new teachers so that they can be embedded, or if I can say, they can like the job and they can stay in the job. So it is a process, not like something you do once and you go. And concerning gender pedagogy, it is in module 2, where we train in subject like mathematics or science, but we emphasize on gender aspects. That is as inclusive, one of aspects of inclusive education. So where teachers and mainly subject teachers and SBMs, acquire some skills of how they can organize inclusive school with focus on gender, because the starting point was to enhance participation of girls in learning mathematics from primary to senior 3, later to advanced level. So that is why there is aspects of gender pedagogy. I may also talk about the question from UNICEF, whether the program will be sustainable for school leadership. I may say yes. As also Dej highlighted in the beginning, these programs is part of partners. And I guess that was the main purpose of involving URC College of Education in the program. So we as lecturers acquired skills. That is one for school leadership. And again, some best practices are included in our pre-service module. And mainly, if I come to in-service, the program is there as URC program. It is approved by different channels. Though the remaining task is how to involve in-service teachers. The main question is, the teachers in service were supported financially by Vvob. So the question is, when they are not supported, will they be able to attend the cost? The course. So because it will be costly. So, but together again, we can see how the cost can be reduced to a minimum, but that is an issue to discuss with an institution in charge of in-service teachers and school leaders. So that is what I want to highlight.
Okay, thank you. I hope that most of the questions have been answered, at least to some extent. I think we can take one more round of questions, perhaps, before we move to the next session.
Thank you. My name is Emmanuel Sibomana, and I work for Wellspring. I would like also to congratulate Vvob for this important achievement. Findings that they have presented, which I think are relevant and useful, not only for Vvob, but also for those of us that are in the same area, supporting school leaders. Now, I have two questions. One, on the first presentation, which I noticed that it relied mainly on self-reported information from interviews, and yes, from interviews from the different categories of participants. And I would like to know whether there has been some ways of checking practically whether the school leaders were actually implementing what they said they were implementing, or whether they were doing what they said they were doing. I'm asking this because as Wellspring, we're also involved in supporting school leaders. And we've observed that after completing a training session, when you talk to school leaders, they can explain their learning effectively. They can tell you how things should be done. You notice that they know how things should be done. But then when you go to the schools to see whether what they say is reflected in how they manage the schools, you realize that there is a big gap. And that has been a challenge for us, so maybe you can enlighten us about that. The second is on the impact of the program, which indicated that there hasn't been a significant effect on pass rates. And I found this somehow concerning, because if we are leading and teaching and learning together, and the main responsibility of school leaders is to lead teaching and learning, so if leadership practices improve, then in principle they should result in the improvement in learners' achievement. So then maybe you have dug deep into that to identify why this is so that we can know then going forward what areas to work on to ensure that what we are doing has a direct or indirect impact on the way children are learning. And then the impact on English. Why English? I would like to know more about why just English and not other subjects. Thank you.
Thank you. Please stand up when you're talking, as we are online, so we can see you.
Thank you so much. My question goes to Richard. He mentioned that the focus on the blended learning. Oh, sorry. I'm the team from FHR 360 in the project of schools and systems. Richard mentioned that the focus on blended learning and improved use of data for school leadership is one of the lessons learned. I wanted to hear from him to share with us some challenges or best practices in terms of ICT devices and I may say internet connection and monitoring evaluation of that program and so on. Thank you.
There are still so many questions, but we are having a panel and we can also ask your questions after.
Yeah, thank
the
you.
panel.
My name is Gemma Marie. I'm from Enabel. My question goes maybe to Kara or to Vvob, because I see that in the CPD scope they have STEM, and why? And my colleague, I think he raised it somehow. Why did the study touched only math, English, and Kinyarwanda, and not scientific subjects? This is one. The second question is about monitoring and the database. How that
I work with Right to Play as education specialist, and very, very happy with the presentation. And actually, you've done a very good job. This is a behavior change process, not very easy, but you've realized quite a lot. One question I had, you probably didn't vividly bring it out, but I am aware of your work where you have had some e-certification enhancement process. I would like to request for your guidance or recommendation, if any, to different actors or partners, both policy and institutional, about how best the e-certification program can actually be strengthened, expanded, or any idea that you really think can help anybody wanting to follow that path. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Vvob and the team, for the great work you've been doing. This is Noella from Save the Children. I have a few questions. The first one is on the, you measured like the efficiency for leadership, management, but looking at the percentage, when you look at the management, it was from 47 to 64, when others were above 80. So I wanted to understand, were there any challenges they mentioned, maybe not even from the evaluation only, but even for the monitoring? What are the challenges around the management? The other one is on the, there is where you mentioned on the challenge where the teachers are doubting the mentors, and the mentors are complaining about refusing the support. What would be the reasons? Because we are doing CPD, there are partners that are planning them, so we want to understand the challenges. The first one is on the gender. You said the schools with male
head teachers performed better, yet we even have few head teachers who are female. So what are the challenges around the leadership of the female head teachers, and what would be the recommendation for everyone who wants to work with the schools? Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Marie Rose from Humanity and Inclusion. Thank you to Vvob team for the good presentation. I have two questions on the consideration of special and inclusive education. As you have said, when you analyzed the learning outcomes for P6 and Senior 3 students, there is the change in their performance. And what about students with disabilities? Because most of them, when they pass the national exam, there are challenges. And one of the response to their challenges is additional time, but not really the answer to their challenges. What should this program recommend for this group of students with special educational needs, most of them children with disabilities? And we have heard that the gender-responsive pedagogy have been considered in this program. And what about inclusive education during the CBM, SCR training to cater for those students with disabilities? Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff and Inge. You have 5 minutes for all those questions.
Harriet, can I ask one more?
Oh, yeah, yes.
Thank you, sorry. I think there are a lot of questions. I'm Ruth Mkachimenyi, Mastercard Foundation staff, overseeing the leaders in teaching implementers. And I would really thank Vvob and big congrats really for this end-line evaluation. It has been, I think, a long journey. We've been there together as a program planner for the leaders in teaching. I congratulate you so much, and I'm happy for the work that has been done. Quickly, I would really go to my comment on Kara's research question. Very interesting. I think we are all here, and we are doing what we are doing because we want to improve learning outcomes for the young people in primary, pre-primary, and secondary. For that reason, I was I would say a comment. Do we have in the pipeline a plan to really do like a comparative study or something maybe I have missed, maybe you did, to compare what has been paramount in improving learning outcomes in the 14 districts under leaders in teaching, and maybe you go outside to the 16 districts just to see really. And I think that is really important for the scalability and sustainability of the program. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Ruth. I think we can give the word to our two presenters, but just I don't think you can answer all questions. Maybe you can take out one and try to answer both Carla and Christina, and then we conclude this session. I think a lot of learning is taking place. That's the main objective of this program, to learn together. And I believe that we can also take the discussion to the cocktail afterwards.
We start with Carla?
Yes.
Sure, yes. Okay, so I'll pick, I think the question that I think is most relevant to go into, there was a question about passing rates that was asked, like that it was worse and that we don't see effects there. I do want to nuance that a bit, because especially passing rate, that's an outcome that that really reflects the accumulation of knowledge over all the years the student has been in the school. So especially for that outcome, I would think it's not realistic to expect already a result the year after immediately. I think particularly this outcome, it will take more time because the passing rate in P6 reflects all the accumulated knowledge from all in primary education. So for grades, I can more imagine to find results, and we do see that for English, like I showed. For passing rates, I would really want to have, if I were the one to decide, of course, to have those follow-up impact evaluations to be able to follow these cohorts and the students at these schools over time. I think for time reasons, I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, Christina, we go to your reaction.
Thank you, and sorry I'm not going to be able to answer all of the questions. Maybe just quickly talk about the question about the efficacy for leadership versus efficacy for management and why we might not see a change in efficacy for management in our findings. And actually, overall, people rated themselves very highly at baseline, and so we don't see a huge shift between baseline and endline because of that. And in addition, a lot of the questions about the efficacy for management are often things a little bit more out of the teacher's control. So, for example, being able to handle the paperwork required of the job or maintaining control of your schedule. A lot of those things are outside of their control. We do still see positive changes between baseline and endline, but that is more likely why we don't see as significant of a change on those. And I'm happy to show you the questions that were asked. I have them here, so I can show them to you later.
Thank you very much for the very relevant questions. I think there's still a lot of thinking to take forward. Thank you also for both of the presenters, Carla and Christina, to present and to answer these questions. I think overall, maybe to conclude this session, this question on impact at the level of students is of course the key question that has been asked to us from our partners, from beneficiaries, from the ministry, from the donors, etc. And it's the key question, obviously. From the presentation of Carla, we have seen some kind of things happening at that level. So there are indications that what we do with school leaders trickles down to that level of learners. At the same time, there's a lot of questions that remain. Why English? Why Kinyarwanda? Why not the STEM subjects that we actually targeted it in this program? At the same time, I do believe that, and especially in the evaluation of Three Stones initiative that comes out strongly, the creation of a culture of learning and of distributed leadership at the level of the school between a head teacher and a team of teachers, that is something I believe that we have really key insights in how that works, that it is important, for example, that you have these key actors being trained at the same time or at least in a similar time frame, and then some kind of magic happens in the school. Some kind of environment is being created. And we do believe strongly that this kind of learning environment, that's what we are looking for. Yeah? And that this does eventually have an effect on learners as well. So with that, I think, I hope we can conclude this session and invite some panel members. Harriet, our MC, she will introduce them. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff and Inge, and thank you our presenter, our researchers, for the good presentation. So let's go to the last session to hear from our partners and the true story of our beneficiaries, Didi and the head teacher. So you're going to have, I'm going to call Chantal Dusabe, our strategic advisor in school leadership. So she will moderate the panel. And please, Chantal, come forward, and you will invite the panelists to come to join you on the stage. And of course, you will introduce them and start the presentation. We had 1 hour, but please try to do like 30 minutes. Yeah, 45 minutes maximum. Thank you.
Thank you, Harriet. I will invite our members of the panel. I will act as the moderator of this panel. I will first of all invite Leo Mugenzi. Please welcome. So Leo is, please sit here. Leo is the head of the Teacher Development, Management, and Career Guidance and Counseling Department at REB. You are most welcome, Leo. Next, we have Dr. Dan Imaniriho. Dr. Dan is senior lecturer in the School of Education at the University of Rwanda, College of Education. And he is also our trainer of school leaders in the CPD Diploma in Effective School Leadership. You are most welcome, Dan. Thank you for being with us. We have Madam Edith Batamuriza. Tamariza is the District Director of Education in Nyagatare District. She has also, before being the DDE, she was head teacher of one of the big schools in Nyagatare District, the Groupe Scolaire Kagitumba, and she also participated in the CPD Diploma in Effective School Leadership, Cohort 0. That was the one we started with in 2016. That's when she graduated. Most welcome, DDE. And lastly, we have Father Joseph. Father Joseph Ukundayezu. He is head teacher of Groupe Scolaire Bruno Gihundwe. This is a 12-year basic education school located in a rural area in Rusizi district. Father Joseph participated also in the CPD Diploma in Effective School Leadership in Cohort 2. So thank you, Father Joseph, for having accepted to come all the way from Rusizi to participate in this event. So this panel discussion, we are going to continue learning together. This panel discussion will be around lessons learned. We've seen lessons from the research, but there are also other lessons learned throughout the implementation of the program. So we are going to focus on 3 themes that were found to be key throughout the program, the multi-year program that we are completing, Leading Teaching and Learning Together, and that Vvob wants to continue promoting in its next program. These are use of data, distributed leadership, as you have seen in the research, and then blended learning. We are also going to touch on education sector coordination, because we are lucky to have REB represented on this panel. So thank you very much, panelists. You are most welcome to this session. So without taking much time, I'm going to start the first question with Leo Mugenzi. He's the one taking the very first question. Leo, as you know, there are different development partners involved in school leadership and teacher support in basic education in Rwanda. How do you ensure coordination of all the interventions, such as provision of the CPD for school leaders to avoid duplication of efforts? And what are the challenges do you face? How do you overcome them? Also, we want to hear from you how can the use of data, because this is important, use of data support REB in sector coordination? So over to you, Leo. Thank you. You have 5 minutes to answer this question.
Yes. Bon après-midi à tout le monde. Je suis très content de faire partie de ce panel. I'm very happy also that we started this program together. And as we are at the end of the program, I would like really to be honest with you because in 2017, when this program was developed, designed, I was also excited to know exactly what will be the end results. And for sure, with the Vvob support, in that time I was not in department. I was education advisor to Vvob. And now I'm the head of the department in teacher development and the management. So let me now give my testimony for this critical question and a very interesting one. Well, first of all, as our DPs, development partners, know today, before starting any activity, any planned activity, we have to sign the memorandum of understanding. We have to sign an agreement so that we ensure that there is no duplication of those activities. So that is an interesting issue now at Rwanda Basic Education Board, because we know that we have different partners in different aspects, in different, in school leadership and teacher development in general. But without having that agreement and to see that really there is no duplication, sometimes as a TDM, we cannot be sure that this was done by this one or not. Yes, also, all development partners share with us all the planned activities. And at the beginning of each financial year, we have that session. I have seen different development partners here who came just to discuss together what can be done for this and this. And we present to them our concern, our priorities, so that really they can focus on that. So that is one. But we have also different technical working groups and the task forces. And I'm very glad to let you know that Vvob is co-chairing the school leadership task force, and Chantal, who is here, is the co-chair, very active, because we have so many task forces. But as the head of department, I can say that the task force of school leadership is very active, and I'm very happy to mention that today. Yes, we know that we cannot say that we, as the Rwanda Basic Education Board, Teacher Development and Management Department, one of the challenges we have right now is based on the new restructuring. With the new restructuring with the government of Rwanda, we have an issue of staff, where we discuss with different partners to support in that area, where we can have some expertise from DPs. So why not? I know that Vvob gave us the embedded expert, but in TDM not yet. I think for sure for this next program, starting next month, in January, you can think about also that to closely work with you and that specific program, the new one, use of data. So we need a system which can be here, which can help us really to control everything, information related to different CPDs. That's why the use of data is a very interesting one also. We know we developed with different partners the teacher management information system, but it's not yet operational as we wish. So I think we, as this program will focus on the use of data, I think it will be very interesting for us as the TDM to work with the Vvob so that we can control those programs, those CPDs, or why not professional learning communities? Why, when we have those the system well structured, we can assure that there is at least the progress of what we are planning to do or what we have planned before. Thank you very much, Chantal.
Thank you, Leon, for this insight in terms of sector coordination. And we are happy to, as Vvob, to continue supporting TDM department in terms of system strengthening. So thank you. We go to the next question. Dr. Dan, URCE and REB, with the support of Vvob, developed and have been implementing together the CPD programs for school leaders and teachers. And you know that the delivery of these programs shifted from face-to-face to blended mode of delivery. So the question is, as a trainer of school leaders in the CPD Diploma in Effective School Leadership, how do you perceive this blended delivery of these programs? What are the main challenges for both trainers and trainees? And what are the strategies were put in place to overcome them? And most importantly, what are the areas for improvement in blended design of this program, according to you? You will also tell us how can the use of data be integrated in these CPDs for school leaders and teachers. Thank you. Over to you. You are able to answer in 5 minutes. That would be great. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Those are too many questions to answer in 5 minutes, but I'm going to try to answer them in that allocated time. First of all, when I joined this program, that was in 2018, the program was purely face-to-face. And the question we can ask ourselves, why did we move from face-to-face and go to blended one? Because that will help us to understand the value of blended system or blended the mode of delivery in this program. Actually, maybe many people think that we moved because of Corona. That was not the main reason, because even before Corona, we had started shifting from traditional face-to-face mode of delivery to blended one. There are so many reasons, but the first one was that we had realized that in two mode of delivery, the traditional mode of delivery and the online mode of delivery, each mode has its own strengths and weaknesses. And we realized that if you combine them, the face-to-face can support online and online can support face. That was the first reason we decided to move from face-to-face to blended one. But in the meantime, Corona came, and when the process was going on, then Corona came to push. That is why we moved so fast. So that will help me to explain some challenges we are facing. That speed which increased in implementing the blended mode of delivery. If we look at the outcome of that shifting, we can see a positive result. For example, when you were in the face-to-face mode of delivery, there was a problem of access and accessibility to the program. I can give example, some students, some trainees who are advantaged could say, since the program is in the weekend, as we can't join. But when we shifted to blended mode of delivery, then they had the opportunity of joining, since the program was being delivered through an online system. And second, you could see that the interaction between trainees. For example, in face-to-face, you could see trainees from Musanze being there, sharing experience between people from Musanze. But when we shifted to blended mode of delivery, you could see someone from Musanze sharing ideas with someone from Muhanga or someone from Nyagatare, because they are in the same group and they can work online, they can share those experiences in the forum of discussion and so on. You know, the reality in Musanze may be different from the reality from Nyagatare. Then that was one of results from moving to blended, from face-to-face to blended. But we had, as you said, we had also challenges. First of all, the first challenge is because we were in the process of moving from face-to-face to blended. But because of Corona, we had to push and to increase speed. That means there are things which were implemented, but in hash, if I can say that. The first challenge which came with that was that when it was implemented, some trainees did not have the required material, like computers, like connectivity, connection device, and so on. And I think when they were introducing this activity, Solange talked about some trainees who had to drop out because they did not have those required material, computers, and others. That was the first challenge. The second challenge was related to digital literacy. And that was the biggest challenge because during the training you could see that many support which were giving was support related to technology. Trainees who were forgetting their password, trainees who were forgetting how to enter any forums. So digital literacy was one of the big challenges that we were facing. Another challenge was connectivity, especially for those who were located in the rural and remote area. It was a big challenge which we had to deal with. The strategies to deal with those challenges, in the terms of material, Vvob did a very big, what they can say something to help those people, because they distributed the material to some head teachers, which was helping them in dealing with the problem of material. And they were giving some fees for internet, buying bundles and so on, to help them to get connectivity and so on. So for those who could not follow online, we used to have some face-to-face intervention, going there in their district, meeting them in their centers, and discuss with them about what they did not understand. Yeah, thank you. Besides that, we had what we call big blue button, where we could discuss with the trainees through internet. They meet their facilitators and so on. So I think that is about the blended learning. Now the other question was about the use of data. When we talk about use of data, when do we use data? Why do we need data? Actually, in school, we need data for two things. First, we need to understand where our school, or at which level of performance our school are. That is one, to understand the situation of our schools. Second, we need data to plan where our schools are going. So that is where we need data, and that is why we need to integrate data in the program. So many things were done to just integrate data in this program, especially in the module 2, which I'm the module reader, by the way. That is where we use, because the module is talking about setting strategic direction for the school. That is where we talk about vision, mission, priorities of a school, school improvement plan, monitoring and evaluation. So you see, at that level, we need data. Now, how can we integrate those data in the program? Or how do we integrate the use of data in our program? I see that on 3 dimensions or 3 levels. The first level is a level of content. The second is a level of teaching procedures. And the third level is the level of interaction between trainees and trainees and trainees and the trainers. On the first level of content, actually we try to integrate the data, what I can call data literacy skills. Because the data we use in education sometimes is different from data which are used in other area or other domain. For example, in education we talk about enrollment rate, gross enrollment rate, net enrollment rate. We talk about the performance of a student, where we talk about means, percentages, and so on. Now, our trainees need to have data literacy skills to understand what are those data. How do you collect them? How do you analyze them? How do you interpret them? That is on the level of content. The second level, if I can take just a few seconds, on the level of teaching and learning, we have set up some exercise and task where students will use those data in their test, where they will share experience with their colleagues. Now, on the level of interaction, I think that is where we have some exercises and assignment where they will interact by evaluating the SIP and the other document, vision, mission of other schools. They share school vision and mission, then they evaluate each other. Thank you. That is what I can say.
Thank you very much, Dr. Dan, for this insightful contribution. I like the idea of strengthening data literacy. It's something that really we need to promote. Data literacy is something very important. The capacity to collect, to analyze, and to use data is something that school leaders are supposed to be to acquire as skill. Thank you. I will move to the next panelist. That is the DDE, Madame Batamuriza. As District Director of Education, one of your main responsibilities is to monitor implementation of quality education in your district. How do you work with other education actors at sector and school level to achieve your goal? Because we heard from the previous presentation that distributed leadership is key when it comes to leadership. Number 2 is about the data, use of data again. How does the use of data help you to effectively achieve your goal? And what kind of data do you need? Over to you, Madam. Thank you.
Thank you, Chantal. As she said, as a Director of Education, one of my responsibilities are monitoring and evaluation of the education activities. But before we monitor the activities, there is what we call planning. We first sit down and see, what are we going to do as education actors? Through education sector strategic plan, through district development strategy, through Vision 2020 and 2050, what do they say about education? We came up with a priority saying, enhancing demographic divided through ensuring access to quality education and education for all. And when we come to that priority, we sat down with the stakeholders, with the sector officials and the school head teachers and teachers, we analyzed the priority. What does it mean? What can we do as education actors? And then we came up with, we sit, we collect the data related to education, whether attendance, whether dropout, whether performance, whether everything, and then we sit down, we see, according to the data we've collected from different areas from schools, what can we do to achieve quality of education, to have the quality of education? And then we saw that we can at least sit down, prioritize those data. We have dropout, we have attendance, we have performance, we have. But according to sector X, school Y, the priority of school Y the same as school X? We saw that no, because of the environment. And then each school sat down with the stakeholders, those are parents, local leaders, stakeholders from the school, and then they sat and did SWOT analysis. They analyzed every data they have. After analyzing the data, they came up with a priority. And that priority led them to have some strategies to overcome that priority they have got. Then after setting the strategies, they set the activities to achieve those strategies and then submitted to the sector. The sector education officer collected the data and then submitted to the district. We all sat and see. In sector X, you have these issues. Sector Y, you have these issues. Then each sector sit down and plan how you can achieve your priority. They planned. That's when they started the Plcs in partnership with the Vvob and URC teachers, even TTC tutors. Each sector started working on their priority using the strategies they had set. And then after some time, they sat again to see the implementation of what they were going to do. They reviewed the implementation. After reviewing the implementation, they said then, we have seen that after prioritizing that dropout is our key priority, we set the strategies that we are going to work with parents and the community, for example. We are going to increase CPD activities. We are going to do this, and then they got one best strategy that can overcome that priority they had. Then they reviewed, they implemented, then we came on a table for reflection. What have we done all along? Is there any achievement, or there is not? After seeing the sector X's achievement, and then we collected them together at the district level. Each sector shared the experience according to their priority. Then we came to see that among the 14 sectors we have, 10 sectors were on poor performance. 2 sectors were on students dropout. 1 sector were on COVID preventive measures. Another sector was on working with the community. And then we came up with a priority at a district level, which is poor performance. And then we set strategies how we can come over that poor strategy, poor performance. That's when we came to see what are the data can we ask schools according to their performance. We need performance by gender, we need attendance by gender, we need dropout by gender, we need everything that can help us to achieve our goal of fighting poor performance. And then this is now where we are. As the district, we sit and see what is our role, what is the role of the sector, what is the role of the school head teacher, what is the role of the teacher, what is the role of the learner, what is the role of the parent, what is the role of the community to achieve our goal of getting good performance instead of poor performance. Though we are not at a bad, let me say we are not at a bad place of performance, but the performance we were on was calculated according to national examinations. But we came to sit and see. Before that kid comes to P6 or senior 3, how is she coming from nursery to P6? The journey from nursery to P6, isn't there a gap between there? We came to see that basing on national examination marks isn't enough for us to achieve that performance. But we came to set another priority strategy of getting lower primary alone, upper primary alone, and then secondary alone. And then we set a strategy of doing comprehensive assessment instead of analyzing national examination results. And those comprehensive assessment results will lead us to show us where are we in nursery, where are we in primary lower, where are we in primary upper. Remember, lower primary, we are from Kinyarwanda to English as a medium of instruction. We are having some issues down there which is different from upper primary. That's why we separated them. So as those data will help us to see where are we now. And those, the most asked data that helps us to overcome that is students and teachers' attendance, school dropout, school feeding, infrastructure, schools with no water, with no electricity, and we encourage them to use ICT, yet they don't have electricity, or even children with disability. In our district, we have 1,076 children with disability, different disabilities in school, but we are helping them to access school. And we are still campaigning them. From today to 14th in the district, we have a campaign called Turengera Umwana. And this campaign is focusing on fighting against dropout, drug abuse, teen mothers, and even stigmatization of children with disability. And we hope all those will help us to overcome or achieve our goal. Without delaying, in conclusion, we found that when we reinforce CPD activities, it will help us to achieve. Parents' involvement, they are key partners. Remedial catch-ups for those slow learners and those who didn't participate well, instead of making them repeat, we do a catch-up for them. And then school feeding reinforcement. We're having children from poor families. Without helping them to attend school, that's when we get those issues we are fighting against. Classroom supervision and advices to teachers. We are having many teachers who are unqualified because lack of teachers led us to be hiring unqualified teachers. And we need to be near them, doing induction to them through CPD, and it will help us to. Thank you, Chantal.
How is distributed leadership implemented in your school as a result of your participation in the CPD Diploma in Effective School Leadership and the participation of other education actors in your school in these CPDs? And also you will tell us with an example how distributed leadership has helped you to overcome some challenges in your school. And also you will touch on the use of data again, how use of data helped you to ensure effective leadership in your school. Over to you. Thank you.
I firstly thank Vvob, Rwanda Education Board, University of Rwanda, Campus of Education, for having organized the CPD program in effective school leadership for us as the school leaders. Through this CPD program, we acquired many skills, including implementation of distributed leadership in our schools. In our school, the distributed leadership is implemented in the following way. We, as a teacher, take lead in ensuring that the 5 professional standards in effective leadership are effectively implemented to ensure the quality of teaching and learning. These standards are creating school direction, reading, learning, reading, teaching, organizing the school as an organization, and work with different stakeholders. We ensure effectively implementation of this standard by sharing responsibilities and put more effort in monitoring and evaluation. Among those stakeholders, I said, there is the deputy head teacher. According to him, he conducts class visits, organizes the continuous professional developments, he prepares timetables, he organizes the assessments of teachers, he keeps the marks record and help in the analyzing of these records. Then at school, we have a school-based mentor. The school-based mentor helps the deputy head teacher to conduct the CPD program in our school, in coaching and mentoring, in order to increase the certification, especially in the teaching methodology in line with competence-based curriculum. He helps also in improving on language proficiency for teacher and the learners. At school, we have also school subject readers. According to school subject readers, he helps their colleagues in increasing knowledge and skills in the respective subject matter they teach in their departments. Because at school, we work in the departments. Those who are in charge of sciences courses make their departments, languages, and the other courses given at school. At school, we have teachers are the key stakeholders and leaders for teaching and learning process at the classroom level. Apart from their main responsibility of teaching, they help the class in ensuring discipline of learners, co-curricular activities such as the clubs at school and the other youth groups at school. At school, we have also the learners. The learners take responsibility to guide the other learners, for example, in the clubs at school, and in the different youth groups at school. Then we are assisted by the district director of education, district education officers, and the sector education inspector. They allow the district education officials make regular monitoring and the evaluation of quality teaching and learning in the school and provide us with constructive feedback. Then the sector education inspector supports our school by organizing CPDs and the seminars at school level, mentoring and coaching. She conducts also the school visit and the school guidance. We've distributed leadership as head teachers. We first experienced the time management. The time management because the tasks at school are shared. Secondly, the daily activity are done easily and motivated because all of stakeholders participate in the preparation. Third, the work is in a good mood, because everyone keeps the ownership. Lastly, the goals set are achieved successfully. According to the data, we says we gather those data through 5 professional standards in effective leadership. For example, for creating strategic direction, we have the following data. For example, the school mission, the school vision and value. Then, for reading, learning, we have data such learners' performance, data on dropout, data on absenteeism. Then for reading teaching, we have a teacher's performance, teacher's qualification, data on absenteeism, and data on readiness. For managing the school as an organization, we have the school budget, financial documents, data on school property inventory, and we have keeping of personal folders, the filing of the school documents. For working with stakeholders, we have data on parents' participation in school activities, such as the school meetings, the school general assembly, and the school general assembly committee. So we use those data to improve on student performance, on school improvement, planning, implementation, on monitoring and evaluation. We use also those data for teachers recruitment. Lastly, we use this data in the CPD program. Thanks.
Thank you, Father Joseph, for your contribution. Yeah, it's good that you are aware that there isn't much one can do in improving quality education, teaching and learning without the use of data. Thank you very much. Now I think we can move if we have time. Do we have time? If we have time, we can get some few questions from the audience. We can start with a round of 5 questions, and then if we still have time, we can also collect some questions from the chat online. Thank you. All right, thank you. So can you facilitate that? Thank you. Please indicate to whom the question is addressed as you ask your question. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm Alexis from Gisagara District. I'm Didi, Director of Education. It is not a question to just complete my colleague, Nyagatare Didi. It is about to do with data collected from lower level schools, even classrooms. I'm saying that when we have all data from lower level of education, classroom, schools, sector level, we consolidate at the district level, and then all data are shared with national level, from provincial level, level, Benedict level, to make sure that they consolidate what we have. And if needed, they publish data. Thank you.
Thank you. That is not a question, it was a compliment. Thank you. Any other question, or everything was clear?
Another question, or?
Richard, you have a question, or we can end here?
Okay.
So if everyone is good, is satisfied, we can thank our panelists for the insightful discussion, and please help me to give them a big round of applause for the great discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chantal. Thank you very much our panelists, Mr. Leo, Dr. Dan, Mrs. Batamuriza, and Father Joseph, for your participation and sharing of your experience with the program. Thank you very much. So we are approaching the end of our event today. And of course, as you know, we have our key partners, Minister of Education, Rwanda Education Board, and the URC. And I would like to call upon Acting Principal, URC, for the closing remarks of this event today. Thank you. Have the floor.
Dear the Vvob Program Manager here in Rwanda, dear officials from public institution and development partners, dear participants from here in this room and online, good evening. It is my pleasure to be with you this afternoon to learn about this program, to learn what this program has so far achieved over the last 5 years. Before I can maybe proceed with some highlights, I want to thank, first of all, the organizer of this event, which aimed at sharing the achievement, which are an outcome of the partnership between the three institutions, Vvob, Rwanda, URC, University of Rwanda College of Education, and Rwanda Basic Education Board. So you understand that over the last 3 years, the three partners have implemented together, have learned together a lot concerning the agenda of this program, leading, teaching, and learning together. This event is, first of all, to raise awareness of what we have been doing together, what are issues we have been working together, and what are issues that are still trending that need also input from different education stakeholders, with, of course, the only purpose or the common purpose of improving quality education in basic education sector from primary to secondary. Of course, during this partnership, we have learned and benefited a lot from Vvob in terms of technical support. I can add on financial support. Without this support, I think we couldn't alone deliver as expected. Of course, as we thank Vvob for financial support, we can't ignore that, of course, the source of funding is various, mainly from some key partners, MasterCard Foundation for secondary education, and the Belgium government, mainly for primary component of this project. As you have seen, here we are learning about the impact that you have made in schools where we're intervening. You have learned about 6 districts, but maybe we didn't have time to look at how many schools, but there are many for sure. 60 districts for primary and 14 districts for secondary education. And the impact is very, very positive. When you look at the baseline study, and now where we are, the result, the outcome are very satisfactory, and this encourages us maybe to continue supporting the schools, our teachers, and the learners. So I really thank the 2 companies which carried out these researches. One concerning the impact of the program on teachers and school leaders, Freestone International. Thank you very much for sharing the findings of research, and of course the impact on student performance by Maastricht University. I thank the 2 presenters, Christina and Carrera, very much. I hope these findings are accessible and some details can be accessed for further use. This program, as the name is, leading, teaching, and learning together, normally targeted school leaders, head teachers, and deputy head teachers, but also teachers, but in the category of school subject leaders. So they are all leaders. You understand that any outcome in school concerning the performance of both the personnel and student can't be achieved if the leadership is not well implemented, if leaders are not skilled. And this program started at the right time, when the government of Rwanda decided to make a shift in the curriculum from knowledge-based curriculum to competence-based curriculum. It was realized that there were some, of course, poor learning outcomes in some schools, in some districts. That's why in the beginning, all the schools or this district were not targeted. So the intervention was carried where there was poor outcomes and where this program wants really to improve those learning outcome. But secondly, apart from that poor outcomes, teachers and leaders, when there is a change, they need really support so that they can implement that change. And I think even up to now, they still need the support because of this pandemic, for instance, which brought up new realities, and we have to adjust our practices. So the program truly has enhanced or supported the implementation of curriculum-based, competence-based curriculum, and as we have seen, it have improved some learning outcomes, though not, of course, in all subjects like we saw in mathematics or languages such as Kinyarwanda, but at least English as a medium of instruction has been positively impacted. When we look at the tangible outcome of this program, as different presenters have presented, especially the outcome from the research or the program design and setting itself, we have achieved a lot concerning the continuous professional development of in-service teachers. At URC and together with Vvob, we have developed 3 programs that will remain to support teachers and school. One which is very key as far as school leadership and management is concerned, I have to highlight again, it is effective school leadership. It is a CPD diploma because I don't have to go into details, but there is a difference between a certificate and diploma in terms of number of credit and the time required to complete. So a diploma is higher than a certificate. So that program is there, and as far as needs will be there and support will be there, I think it can be it can serve school leaders, new school leaders, or school leaders in the district where we haven't been able to intervene during these last 5 years. The second program is a continuous professional development program in educational coaching and mentoring. Maybe we didn't come back to the concept. One of the participants has asked about what is mentoring. Of course, mentoring is sharing experience. An experienced person sharing experience with an inexperienced person, but inexperienced in a specific field. I may be experienced in one field, but not experienced in that one. And here we are talking about, experience of teachers, new teacher and experienced teachers. Coaching is about unlocking the potential of someone to find solution by themselves. So that's the difference. And in terms of equipping teachers with skills, you can say this program hasn't equipped teachers with hard skills about content, but with soft skills. How can I do this in the best way or in the right way? And another outcome is the introduction of new concepts in schools. Those concepts on which learning can continue, professional learning community, and community of practices. These are concepts that are still there in schools, and I think school leaders and even DDs and sector education inspector, they own this and they have to monitor that learning in schools continue using this framework, if I can say. The third, which is very important, the University of Rwanda, especially College of Education, has also built the capacity through implementing this program. So they have learned a lot about supporting teachers, implementing methodologies that are in line with the requirement of the competence-based curriculum. And as one of the presenters in the panel, our lecturer, Dr. Dan, has said, we have also acquired some skills in blended teaching and learning. And this is helping us a lot amid of this pandemic. And University of Rwanda has also integrated this blended learning and teaching as a mode of delivery across all colleges. So that is also very important. When the university is embracing this mode of delivery, and together with Vvob, our lecturers are already trained, we are really thankful of this partnership. So we are maybe also obliged to think about the way forward. So we didn't really have time to look the way forward, but maybe concerning the College of Education, and I think I can share this view with others, that the first thing that we have to do is to sustain what we have achieved. We have created this PLC and COP. These are framework to sustain this program, to make sure that those who have benefited from them act as trainer of trainers, that they continue supporting new teachers and new leaders in schools. Of course, where they need support, REB and development partners will intervene just to enhance what they are doing. So mentoring should continue in schools, and monitoring is very important. Monitoring starting from school leaders. We expect that they monitor the COP, how they are implementing the schools, that the sector education inspectors and district director of education also support in monitoring, of course, supporting the Rwanda basic education. Vvob and URC can continue in terms of monitoring the impact and carrying out research to see which next element can be added on to improve what is being implemented in schools. And where possible, why not scaling up this program? But this is still a challenge, especially financial challenge. Concerning human resources, Vvob and URC, so they are ready, they have skills, but I'm not very sure whether we are ready in terms of financial support. But I believe that together we can. If people have some skills and others have financial means, we bring all those means together and we invest in education sector to improve the quality of learning and teaching. So I think I will close my remarks here by thanking all for your long attention. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Fourier. Yes, together we can. So we are at the end of our event. So the final communication. So as Dr. Fourier asked, you have received a folder with a summary of the findings of the end-line study and the impact, end-line evaluation and the impact study. We have also Urunarwa Barezi magazine which is the voice of the teachers and the head teachers. Of course, the full reports or the full research will be available on the Vvob website. So as the theme of today was building change by leading, teaching, and learning together, so we have collected different stories of change, and the most significant change stories have been highlighted in a project book, which will be handed over to you. So we have also some of those change story, the most significant change story. You can be able to see them when we be outside for the cocktail. So we have also a photo exhibition, online a photo exhibition, to see all those story of change. So the link will be shared with you. Also, we have an animation to explain or see the findings of the program. So I hope you will be able to go on Vvob website to get those links. But of course, for the most change story, you can see some of them when we'll be sharing other best stories for our programs. So I invite you for the cocktail. They are outside, and thank you again, and nice evening.